Flooding rain and heavy downpours hit hard during rush hour. I'm tracking one more line of storms, when we're in the clear, and how quickly the weather improves.
The city council voices its disappointment with DPW's handling of the water crisis.
Everyone was kept in the dark.
While the mayor takes a less aggressive approach, the immediate action the council is taking to determine the source of the contamination. Baltimore's violence continues to claim the lives of city youth. What a former charter school founder says needs to happen to end the vicious cycle.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. Mary's off tonight. The Baltimore City Council is calling for accountability from the Department of Public Works. Members are concerned about the city's response to E. coli found in the water supply last week. Now, the council will hold several hearings about how it happened and was handled. The first happens this week.
You had babies' formula being mixed with E. coli water. You had seniors who were taking their medicine with E. coli water.
DPW has more than a $600 million budget. The agency is responsible for Baltimore's infrastructure and most essential services. While the mayor stands by DPW, the city council is demanding answers. Keith Daniels spoke with city council members today. He joins us live now with their sharp criticism. Keith.
Well, Kai, as you know, Councilman Yitzi Schleifer has said, quote, he has little to no confidence in the Department of Public Works and how it handles its most basic functions. And tonight, the agency is under fire once again. At Baltimore City Hall,
Schleifer, Middleton,
council members taking aim
and then went dark for approximately 9 hours.
Passing a resolution at Monday's city council meeting
and E. coli positive test,
clearing the way for investigative hearings to address last week's contaminated water crisis.
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, a lot of people were really scared. For this to happen is highly, highly unusual. So we have to get to the bottom of it.
Councilwoman Odette Ramos among those council members looking for answers and accountability. The Department of Public Works under scrutiny after E. coli was found in the water in West Baltimore, and why the public wasn't notified sooner over the holiday weekend.
Everyone was kept in the dark. The big danger is that, come Monday, you had babies' formula being mixed with E. coli water. You had seniors who were taking their medicine with E. coli water.
I do believe that things could have been done better. I know we got information later in the game, right, in terms of a late Sunday night into Monday morning.
A lot of frustration all around. I think a lot of it was the Department of Public Works as well as the mayor's office in terms of that unclear and inconsistent communication at the beginning of the contamination event. I will say as time went on, things did improve.
But despite council members' concerns over the matter, Mayor Brandon Scott insists the city's response to the crisis was handled correctly, refusing to be critical of DPW.
There was no misbundling of communication. You weren't here the other day, but we laid that out, that we follow the protocol of how you communicate and how you have to, MD has to say to DPW, yes, you can say this at this time. That was followed. We're going to follow every rule and every regulation. And when you're talking about an issue like this, again, this wasn't something that DPW mismanaged. They found out the water had this in it because they did the testing. This wasn't someone else telling us.
Still, council members calling for the hearing to get answers from city agencies, including DPW.
One, again, how the information was communicated, when folks knew what they knew, but also what can we do to mitigate these challenges in the future?
Did they drop the ball?
I will say this, everything could have been done better.
Well, the investigative hearing on the water crisis is set for 2 p.m. Thursday, and Councilman Schleifer says he will call for a hearing with DPW every Thursday until all of the questions are answered. Reporting live tonight from City Hall, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. This isn't the first time city council members have stepped in to hold city agencies accountable. Back in May, a group of city council members called on the Baltimore Police Department and City State's Attorney's Office to implement short-term plans to deal with crime over the summer. Now, city council members have continued to call for change in how the city deals with crime, but Mayor Brandon Scott and Police Commissioner Michael Harrison stand by their crime strategy.
The current plan is not working, so we need to readjust. We have to do something vastly different than what we're currently doing.
Yeah, because what you would say is that, one, Mackenzie, what I'll say is this. Our police department has taken 1,600 weapons off the street this year. That's more of any year in that time in recent memory. That's more than in 2014 when we had 500, 600 more police officers. The work is being done each and every day.
Well, that brings us to our question of the day. Are city leaders honest about problems facing Baltimore? So far, 98% of those who voted say no. We'd like to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to make your voice heard. Another problem city leaders are trying to get a handle on: Squeegee kids. Mayor Scott will host the first public Squeegee collaborative meeting tomorrow. Baltimore City police officers are working overtime, patrolling corners where Squeegee kids are known to gather. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains it's not clear how long those patrols will last.
We know these enhanced visibility patrols were stepped up over the summer. Police Commissioner Michael Harrison says it's not sustainable to have these officers sitting on these corners utilizing hundreds of hours of overtime. But right now, BPD says they have no end date on the horizon. Red lights stopping traffic, but opening up the opportunity for Squeegee kids to make some money. Split it with your friends, please. This oftentimes tense moment between Squeegee kids and motorists driving the conversation about how to handle this longtime Baltimore concern forward. Mayor Brandon Scott working with a group to find solutions after saying the current laws on the books banning squeegeeing would not be enforced. The Downtown Partnership of Baltimore piloting an armed security guard program, putting them at known squeegee corners to boost the feeling of safety, like here at President and Pratt. That program has ended. The Baltimore Police Department also utilizing hundreds of hours of allotted overtime to put officers here, not enforcing the laws, but watching. Fox 45 News capturing this moment earlier this summer. But the officer walking away without making any arrests.
If they commit criminal damage to a vehicle.
Police Commissioner Michael Harrison on the radio saying the current plan can't last forever.
It is not sustainable because our manpower doesn't allow us to do that, because there's so many other serious things that we have to respond to and that we have to be in places to prevent. And so we can't sustain this indefinitely.
But BPD telling Fox 45 News Now, quote, there is no set end date for the increased patrols, adding the department, quote, assesses the situation on a day-to-day basis. Meanwhile, the officers sit on the corners whether Squeegee kids are there or not. The mayor is having the first public meeting of the Squeegee Collaborative set for Tuesday night. You do have to register to attend, so I'll put that information in this story on our website. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News has seen video after video from viewers showing heated exchanges between Squeegee kids and drivers. Some of those encounters have led to physical fights or Squeegee kids damaging cars. In July, a Squeegee kid was charged with shooting and killing Timothy Reynolds. Police say Reynolds got out of his car and confronted a group of them with a bat. Mayor Scott and City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby have both said they won't clear the streets of Squeegee kids, but there are laws in place to keep them out of intersections. One law states a person can't stand on a roadway to solicit a ride, employment, or business from a driver. Another statute targets aggressive soliciting, defined by actions like intentionally blocking or a driver or using obscene language and intimidation. Enforcement of those laws has been limited. An 11-year-old boy is being charged with first-degree arson in connection with a fire that destroyed a Carroll County store. That charge is raising questions about how Maryland deals with children charged with crimes. Jeff Abel joins us live right now with a look at how Baltimore City compares with other jurisdictions. Jeff?
Well, there are complaints tonight that Baltimore and other jurisdictions are paying the price for taking a softer approach toward kids and crime.
In Hampstead, the fire that torched the Dollar General store left $2.5 million in damage. And the suspect is this child, an 11-year-old seen walking into the store on the day of the fire. State fire marshals have charged him as a juvenile with first-degree arson.
We know that it is not typical for an 11-year-old kid to burn down a Family Dollar. So that is indicative that there are some mental health issues there.
It's the latest case involving some of the state's youngest residents, now accused of some of the most violent crimes. In Baltimore last month, a 9-year-old allegedly shot and killed a 15-year-old girl. Police described it as an accident. The victim's family disagrees. But no matter the motive, in Maryland, 9-year-olds cannot be criminally charged.
Clearly, the focus in the leadership of the city and really in the leadership of the state in the General Assembly has been sort of some of the softer approaches that are consistent with, again, juvenile delinquency, not with, hardcore violent crimes.
In Annapolis this year, lawmakers passed new laws making it easier for more child suspects to be tried as juveniles instead of adults.
We are arresting and rearresting the same children and adults who are committing crimes in our community.
But in Prince George's County, county leaders who have seen crime soar this summer are calling for a curfew and a tougher approach.
It's clear that the problem is what happens after the arrest, or in our case, what doesn't happen.
You cannot treat every child at home.
What's happening, according to activist Kenji Scott, is that Maryland simply cannot provide the treatment for child suspects who many lawmakers would rather not send to jail.
The state legislature has failed horribly at providing opportunities to care for our kids, and now they want to send them back into communities where they are unsafe.
Well, that 11-year-old arson suspect is being charged as a juvenile and is back home tonight. We are live. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News was on weather alert earlier today, and here is why. You can see flooding near Cockeysville. That's Baltimore County. On the top left, our storm tracker was out in absolute deluges tonight. And on the bottom left, outside our studios, blinding rain made driving kind of dicey during the rush hour period. Well, it has been a very damp couple of days, in fact. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers is here right now with your forecast. Jonathan?
Yeah, certainly an understatement, I would say. Kai, we had up to 4.5 inches of rain in some of these isolated areas in eastern Baltimore County near Phoenix. That's what you see there in the orangish red. 2.5 to 3 inches elsewhere in all of these yellows. And still hanging on to a couple of flash flood warnings. Actually, the flash flood warnings actually have expired, but flood warning, one of them is still left over here. And you can see in Baltimore County, that's in effect until 11:30 p.m. Now, we've had reports of a tree down. We've also had plenty of reports of what you can see here with all these little houses underwater. All that is flooding concerns that we had today. We'll go through all of that coming up in my full Weather Authority forecast.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, team coverage of the crisis in the classroom, a violent start to the school year. One Baltimore charter school founder shares how education can turn the tide of crime surrounding city schools. Coming up at 10:30, calls for arming city school police officers. The renewed push as Fox 45 News tracks the persistent issue of guns seized from students. And it's not just the rain dampening the mood on this Ravens Victory Monday. Ahead, 2 key players now lost for the season. Baltimore City is seeing a sharp increase in young people, school-age kids, being murdered. Observers say this is one of the worst in recent memory. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains a former charter school operator who taught a teen recently killed believes there's only one solution.
Citywide broadcast where we had students everywhere.
The day that this happened, I saw a press conference.
My thoughts and prayers go out to the victim's family.
Jack Pinnell no longer lives in Baltimore, but he pays close attention to the news.
I crossed my fingers. I hoped it wasn't one of our boys.
What makes this a school difference? First, we have boys here.
For 6 years, Pinnell ran the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, a charter school in North Baltimore he founded in 2015. Since then, more than 1,000 students have attended the school, including Jeremiah Brogdon.
It's a gut punch.
Brogdon was shot and killed earlier this month outside of Mergenthaler High School.
This is not normal for any of us.
A tragic and traumatic ending to the first week back to school for Baltimore City students.
It's personal for me because I knew this boy when he was 12, 13 years old as a sixth grader at Baltimore Collegiate. And to see him growing up as a man, to see him as a young man and to see his promise and just cut short, it's a sucker punch. It's hard. It's unspeakable.
Young people, teenagers, murdered before becoming adults. It's so frequent in Baltimore, Pinnell says for some parents, the fear is part of everyday life.
We start our school year by asking our parents, what are the hopes and dreams you have for your sons? It is the most emotional moment. And the hopes and dreams sometimes for those parents were, I hope my son lives to be 18 years old. Imagine that.
Brogdon was just 17 years old. He was killed during a confrontation with a suspect who police have only identified as a teenager from another city school. His death marks the 21st murder so far this year in Baltimore, where the victim is age 18 and under. 21 murders, a record number compared to the same time period in the last 5 years, and almost double the amount from 2 years ago, when 12 young people were killed by September 7th. Pinnell believes the only way to reverse this trend is through a better public education system.
Nothing stops a bullet like a job. You can't get a job without an education. So it all comes back to education, education, education.
But in recent years, the education system in Baltimore has struggled. Despite being one of the most funded large school systems in the nation, the graduation rate over the past 5 years is down 2%. Student attendance is down 7%. And college enrollment is down 3%.
There are two victims in this story, Chris. There is Jeremiah and his family, and there's the boy who is now a convicted felon, will be a convicted felon, and probably spend the rest of his life in jail. 2 lives are lost. 2 lives are lost in this circumstance. Everyone should stop and say, is this the city we want?
On City Schools' website, the most recent parent survey results for Mervo were from 2019. That year, just 72% of parents surveyed felt the school was safe. Pinnell says in Baltimore, he doesn't see a city that's making significant changes to improve the education system or the violence, which is one of the reasons he left. When we spoke, Pinnell was in Philadelphia, where he plans to open another all-boys charter school.
It seems to us now, something that we've come to expect, that young people will die at an early age in Baltimore. It's a terribly violent city. We should never, ever think that this is an ordinary course of life. We should never, ever expect a mother to bury her child. We have to make this city safer. We have to make our schools safer. Education is the answer.
I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
After the storms, a beautiful rainbow. Take a look at this. Look closely. It's actually a double rainbow in Hunt Valley. If you capture images or video like this, we'd like to see it. Go to foxbaltimore.com and tap Chime In to upload, and you might just get a shout out right here on Fox 45. Right, Jonathan?
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty picture there. And you know what's kind of interesting, Kai? All rainbows are actually double rainbows.
Oh, they all are?
If you wouldn't believe it, yes,
Oh.
but you don't always see it. It's, it just depends on the lighting and the intensity of the rainbow and your angle. So that's just a beautiful vantage point there. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening right now. HD radar showing us that, yes, we do have a couple of showers still on the eastern shore up in Cecil County, but that continues to push away. There are some more showers that have been trying to approach Hagerstown, Winchester, all the way up toward Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, but those diminishing as well. So overnight, I think we do have some fog and some clouds, and there could be a sprinkle or a shower. Temperatures all in the 70s, BWI over to Aberdeen, Annapolis, Easton, Westminster, about 70 to 75. And took a look at some of the visibilities. They were down to 2 miles over at Annapolis. Everybody else is okay so far. Overcast skies, start your day at the bus stop, 68 degrees. Humidity levels, though, those numbers are going to start coming down. And lunchtime and pickup time, how about that? Near 80 degrees, lots of sunshine, dry, comfortable. And this is only the beginning. I'm going to let you know how long that lasts. Well, we could see our next weather maker around here. That's in my Weather Authority forecast in a couple of minutes.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. After a Mervo High School student is shot and killed, one city councilman is calling for change. What a councilman wants the school system to do and why one parent says it's not enough. The Ravens start the season off strong. What Lamar Jackson is focusing on right now. As you can imagine, the Ravens and their fans flying high after a season-opening rout of the Jets in the Meadowland. Morgan Atson joins us live right now in studio to break down how the team was able to take care of business up to I-95. Morgan?
Well, it was the Jets. You know, the Ravens did all that matters in the NFL, especially
Ouch.
week one. They got the win. When you look around the rest of the league, either extremely tough matchups out of the gate, bad kickers all around, or heavy favorites choking, the Ravens did not fall into any of those categories against the Jets. The emotions of 9/11 in New York, facing Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson's contract distraction, and barely playing anyone in the preseason did not matter. Sure, there's a slow start on offense. The run game is non-existent without J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, which isn't great right now. And while the defense played fast and made big plays all 60 minutes, penalties were an issue. But again, they got the W. 1 of 17, the first of many more if the Ravens get their February schedule wish.
Very positive. It boosts our confidence. We trust in each other. We just got to keep going. You know, this is the first game. We got 16 more games to go, and, you know, playoffs and stuff like that. So we just got to keep it going.
Not my first rodeo, you know what I'm saying? I'm just happy we got to win. The ultimate goal is the Super Bowl, so you got to win to do that. So to get 1-0, I think that's a great start.
The only bad, unfortunately, that injury bug from last season is still around. 3 key starters in Marcus Peters, J.K. Dobbins, Ronnie Stanley were all inactive, and they lost tackle Juwan James for the season with his second torn Achilles. Plus, Baltimore native and veteran corner Kyle Fuller also done. A MRI today confirmed he tore an ACL against the Jets in the fourth quarter. So it's 2 bad injuries there, Kai.
Morgan, indeed. We wish him well. Well, Baltimore City School Police Union president is calling out city leaders why he says the city isn't doing enough to protect students. Also, you'll want to slow down on some parts of I-95 in Harford County where new cameras, speed cameras, are going up. Our top story at 10:30 tonight, the president of the union that represents Baltimore City School Police is calling out leadership after a violent start to the school year. Now, the violence is also reigniting the debate over whether officers should be armed inside city schools. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has more on the call for action.
As it stands and has for many years, anytime a city schools police officer walks into a building, they are required to put their firearm in a locked safe. Well, the president of the FOP for a long time has believed this needs to change, and now one Baltimore City councilman agrees.
A Merville High School student shot and killed in the parking lot of his school. A 15-year-old Carver Vocational School student grazed in the head by a bullet near campus. And just last week, this loaded gun recovered from Connections Community School. Violence prompting Baltimore City Schools FOP President Clyde Boatwright to take to Twitter, writing, "A few days ago, a student was murdered at his high school on the parking lot during dismissal, and some of our elected officials are quietly thankful for the water crisis so they don't have to discuss the dead student." Then, on the 8th day of school, Baltimore City Schools Police is dealing with our third gun incident this school year. Accountability is needed in our city. Hugs are proving to not be enough.
The message is simple to our parents. We're doing the best we can with what we have.
That was Boatwright at the end of last school year, after the department recovered a record 15 guns from students on school grounds. Fast forward to now, the storm of tweets is getting a response from Baltimore City Councilman Robert Stokes.
We're going to talk about guns in school.
Stokes is head of City Council's Education, Workforce, and Youth Committee. He says he's planning another hearing to discuss ways to reduce violence in city schools. The councilman is now also speaking out, saying he believes city schools officers should be permitted to be armed while inside city schools.
We are now handicapping our school police.
But to change the law would require action from the General Assembly, and past attempts have failed. Stokes going on record saying he plans to talk with state legislators.
We got to worry about the safety of our teachers. We got to worry about the safety of the administration in these schools and the students, everybody.
I checked with Boatwright. He says so far no other city leader has responded. Reporting in North Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News is keeping track of guns found in Baltimore City Public Schools. We have an interactive map on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Now, one gun has been found this year. That was at Connections in West Baltimore. More than a dozen firearms, in fact, were seized last school year alone. During today's City Council meeting, Councilman Zeke Cohen formally called on Baltimore City Public Schools to create a plan to implement restorative practices, training in all city schools before the end of the school year. That comes after 17-year-old Merville High School student Jeremiah Brogdon was shot and killed on school grounds earlier this month.
Students, teachers, parents, every stakeholder group has rallied together in support of having restorative practices at every single city school. Currently, we have about 53 that are split between social and emotional learning and restorative practices. Now is the time for us to scale up.
One parent who spoke with Project Baltimore argues restorative practices aren't enough, and that parent believes children need to be held accountable.
What it tells me is we're afraid to have consequences for students. The schools don't want to be accountable because they don't want to look bad. And I'm like, but you're doing a disservice to our kids by not addressing this.
Well, that's not the only big topic City Council talked about today. It introduced a number of bills, including one that would give all residents, including renters, the right to a copy of any water bill upon request to DPW. Another bill would require certain vacant buildings in Baltimore City to be kept secure. The council also called for a hearing to get more information about the new Johns Hopkins Police Department. The university announced last month that it is creating its own police department. That will start next fall or perhaps the following spring. The council will hold two investigative hearings on Thursday, one with DPW on the contaminated water, the other with the elections director on June's primary election. Two people have been arrested following a Baltimore County police shooting on Saturday. One of them is still in the hospital. Alicia Page and Kelly Anthony are both charged with assaulting officers, claiming the car they were in hit a police vehicle. Now, an off-duty officer was hurt, but there's no update on that officer's condition. Fox 45 News has asked for more information, including whether any officers are on leave and if there is any body camera video. The department refused to answer any of our questions. An update right now after a Cecil County family of 5 is found shot dead inside of their Elk Mills home along Hebron Court. Police now say they believe this was a murder-suicide. We're told the father called 911 to report his wife and 3 kids were killed Deputies arrived and say he was dead as well, and a gun was next to him. The children, ages 8, 11, and 14, were also killed. If you are in need of help or know someone who is, there is a service to help for free. You can dial 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It is anonymous and staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Looking ahead, the Maryland Department of Transportation Authority will install a speed camera along I-95 in Harford County next week. The camera will be installed in the construction zone on the southbound side near Maryland Route 152 1 week from today. The agency says there will be a 21-day grace period before it starts giving out $40 fines. The speed limit in that area is 65 miles an hour. President Biden's touting the new infrastructure law that's making a multi-million-dollar upgrade for the Boston Logan International Airport possible. He talked about the new law at the airport today.
Today, not a single solitary American airport, not one, ranks in the top 25 in the world. The United States of America, not one airport ranks in the top 25 in the world. What the hell's the matter with us? It means commerce. It means income. It means security.
Well, the infrastructure law grants $1 billion to 85 airports in the United States. Boston's airport is getting the biggest chunk of that money, $62 million. Other airports are getting large sums of money to upgrade, including Denver, Orlando, Detroit, and also Philadelphia. Inflation remains high. The Federal Reserve is getting ready to roll out another interest rate hike this month to try and bring inflation down. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says it's not likely they'll be able to raise interest rates without triggering a recession.
The Fed is going to need great skill and also some good luck to achieve what we sometimes call a soft landing.
The Biden administration is monitoring negotiations between the nation's largest railroad freight companies and labor unions. Contract negotiations are stalled. If there's not an agreement by Friday, workers are expected to strike. A strike could cost $2 billion every day, as everything from cars to coal to farm and food products could be stalled on trains, leading to empty shelves and higher prices. Well, that strike or a possible strike could cancel all Mark and Camden Brunswick line service as early as Friday morning. CSX owns the track, and its unions are barreling toward a work stoppage. If their signal and track workers walk off the job, Mark, along with other regional rail carriers across the country, would have to halt service. Now, we should note, Penn line service will not be affected. Fox 45 News has compiled a list of alternative commute options on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Governor Hogan is joining 20 other governors around the country, speaking out against President Biden's plan to forgive up to $20,000 in federal student loan debt. In that letter, the governors say the plan punishes the poor and shifts the burden of debt from the wealthy to working Americans. The governors joined several other GOP leaders pushing back against the plan. Angela Brown of the National Desk says some of the loudest pushback is coming from college students.
Like most college students, Emily Fowler has big plans for the future while pursuing music at Masters University.
I would love to serve my nation in some way by being involved in politics, specifically pro-life policy.
Before attending Masters, Fowler completed community college, a strategic move she says saved her $40,000, now hoping to graduate debt-free.
For me, as a college student who made a sacrifice to go to community college first, I was very frustrated when I heard that Biden was just going to forgive tens of thousands of dollars in student debt.
The Wharton Business School says the president's loan cancellation plan will cost taxpayers up to $519 billion. The president, when asked about fairness, called out lawmakers criticizing student loan forgiveness, but voted for tax cuts that benefited the wealthy.
Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses if she wants these guys to give them all a tax breaks? Is that fair?
The White House estimates 90% of debt relief would go to people making under $75,000 a year. Crystal has been paying off student debt for 10 years.
It just would be a lot less stressful, and I would, I think, wake up a lot happier if I didn't have
so much way no for me.
But some college students like Fowler say taxpayer dollars shouldn't have to pay off that debt. The fiscally conservative National Taxpayers Union says debt cancellation could cost taxpayers nearly $2,500.
We need policies that are going to drive down that tuition so that students never have to take out these crazy big debts to begin with.
Under the president's plan, students can get $10,000 in debt relief or $20,000 if they have Pell Grants. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Former President Donald Trump was spotted making a surprise visit to Washington, D.C. He was seen at Dulles International Airport in Virginia Sunday evening. There has been speculation as to the reason for the visit. Some think Trump was heading for his Northern Virginia golf course as he was spotted wearing golf shoes. Others say it could have something to do with the ongoing investigation into his handling of classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. This is only the second time Trump has returned to the nation's capital since leaving office. Former President Trump's legal team is calling out the Department of Justice. In a new filing, the former president's lawyers say the DOJ's investigation has spiraled out of control. Trump's legal team is asking a judge to deny the DOJ's request to continue to investigate the documents.
This investigation is just hitting essentially a roadblock here with the special master discussion and potentially even the appeal. So the momentum of it and the completion timeline are really going to be pushed back.
The new filing today comes after a judge granted former President's request for an independent investigator to review the documents.
One southern border, two very different takes on just how safe and secure it is. I'm Christine Frizzau in Washington with what we're learning.
And although we may start with some clouds and a shower for our Tuesday, sunshine comes back, a total 180. Dry skies, dry humidity, highs near 80. I'm going to let you know how long that's going to last coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Thousands of migrants continue to be bused from Texas and Arizona to Washington, D.C. Now, D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser is trying to create an Office of Migrant Affairs to handle the influx.
How do we treat people humanely? It also allows us to make sure that our homeless services system and our system to create affordable housing isn't broken down by this crisis that we didn't create.
Well, the city says it will spend $10 million to set up the migrant office and will be seeking reimbursement from FEMA. People living near the southern border are pleading for federal aid. The government itself is calling for change as well, but it's becoming clear that there are some gaps in what kinds of changes officials say are needed. Sinclair National correspondent Christine Frizzell explains.
Week after week, they travel nearly 2,000 miles, making Washington, D.C. one of the latest cities to feel firsthand the brunt of what many call a crisis at the southern border. Busloads of migrants from Texas brought here, as the city's mayor says it's simply too much to handle, declaring a public emergency.
To make sure that our systems in D.C. are not broken by a crisis that is certainly not of our making.
Meanwhile, just 2 miles away is the White House. The Biden administration acknowledging a broken system, but not a broken border.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
A different point of view in Eagle Pass, Texas, where Full Measure Cheryl Atkinson just returned from.
It's clear they're fighting a war without help they need from the federal government.
She found government officials, law enforcement, and residents overwhelmed.
Like right now, they still got places where they haven't finished the fence, and they got gates. They let them through.
What do you attribute that to?
Mr. Biden.
The Biden administration says it's focused on root causes of mass migration, including countries where corruption, violence, and devastated economies are causing people to leave their homes, adding that U.S. laws do allow for them to make claims for asylum in this country.
When individuals arrive in the United States and make a claim of fear of persecution by reason of their membership in a particular social group, they are able to make a claim for asylum in immigration court.
Still, with more and more migrants coming, those claims are piling up in an immigration court system that is backing up, and a divided Congress which for now doesn't appear to have immigration reform on its agenda. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
There was some heavy rain in the area which led to flooding today. Take a look at this. Lynn sent us this video of a flooded road in Reisterstown in Baltimore County. Lynn, thank you. Remember, if you do see flooding on the road, turn around, don't drown. And if you see flooding in your neighborhood and can safely take pictures and videos, we'd like to see it. You can upload it to our website, foxbaltimore.com/chime in. And here's Jonathan with more on that rain and whether we're going to get any more rain. Jonathan?
Yeah, and you know, Lynn's got that idea there. Just stay far away from it.
Yes.
If you want to videotape it, okay. Don't drive through it. Don't even try to walk through it because it just can be a few inches of water could sweep you right off your feet. So very unsafe to come in contact with those floodwaters. Now, speaking of floodwaters, not only did we have flooding today, but we also had a tree down here right around Reisterstown, right near Quarry View Court. Also, all of these little dots that you see here right around Reisterstown, also some flooding here, some street flooding, some road flooding. Again, not too far from Reisterstown, another report of road closures and flooding near Cockeysville. Some flooding there, actually right here between the intersection of Bruxton Road and Circle Road. Actually had the road closed there due to some high water. And then in eastern Baltimore County, another instance of flooding in the 12,000 block of Dulaney Valley Road. We actually sent our Chevy Storm Tracker up that way. Now you can see, again, the good news, all the rain is beginning to push farther and farther away. Let's go ahead and straighten out that view for you there. Looks like I kind of overswung that. You can see the showers and thunderstorms now that gave us all the problems earlier on this afternoon. Those now pushing into the Delmarva and down into New Jersey and away. And then there's some more, actually, that's right here. See one batch that's north of Harrisburg, another one that's not too far from Charlottesville, a little more that's north of Pittsburgh. But all that in the cooling of the overnight hours should begin to diminish. There could be a shower tomorrow morning as our latest weather maker, a cold front, finally swings through. But then after that, boy, a big, pleasant change on the way. Take a look at some of these rain totals today. These are our HD radar estimates, up to 4.5 inches in some of these orange areas around Phoenix. So no surprise, no wonder we had some road flooding there. 2 to 3 inches elsewhere in any of these areas in yellow. Again, a couple of flood warnings out earlier. Those have now all been dropped as we've begun draining the water away. Humidity is still here. There's our cold front that's just to our west. We've got a little bit of reduced visibility here and there with the extra humidity and clouds. There's a little bit of fog. And right now, Annapolis, at least the last check, was down to 2 miles. Once this front gets closer and pushes through into tomorrow morning, we'll see that fog leave, and then the drying weather punches in from the south and west, and actually a really nice day on the way for tomorrow. Mostly cloudy skies right now, 73, winds out of the north-northwest at 3 miles an hour with our dew point just sopping, sticky, ugly, nasty, 71 degrees. And you see there that kind of hazy fog on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam right now. Everybody's in the soupy 70s currently. On the other side of the Appalachians, that's where the drier areas, and look at that, 59 right now in Cleveland. Yes, some of that area is going to be coming toward us. Now out in the tropics, a maybe slow developing kind of cluster of thunderstorms here over the central Atlantic, and also low chance of development out of this cluster of storms over the next 5 days. It's in the eastern Atlantic, but outside of that, looking okay for just 1 day after the peak of hurricane season. Now, taking a look on the future scan, again, some of those showers here and there, a lot of them diminishing as they come through. And look, by tomorrow morning, there could be that stray sprinkler shower that passes east, lower humidity during the day tomorrow, and high temperatures getting well into the low 80s, 82, an early shower on Tuesday. Outside of that, any rain gone for the next 7 days. There could be a shower, though, as we head toward next Tuesday. Till then, low mid 80s and low humidity. We got Sports Unlimited coming up in just 2 minutes.
We knew post-game the Ravens lost now starting left tackle Juwan James to a torn Achilles. The second time he's done that. His start against the Jets was his return to football. John Harbaugh confirmed today veteran corner Kyle Fuller is also done. Fuller a torn ACL, ending the Baltimore native's return to his home city after just one game. So the Ravens feeling pretty good about their Week 1 24-9 performance out of the gate against the Jets, but unfortunately the injury bug from last season is still with them. During his Monday in review, John Harbaugh said Week 1 against New York wasn't perfect, but it's a start. The defense was near perfect. 3 sacks, 11 hits on Joe Flacco, and 2 turnovers. Offensively, a little slow start and not much on the ground. The Ravens, though, number 1 and 2 on the depth chart at wide receiver, made their impacts. Devin Duvernay, 2 touchdowns after just 2 all of last season. And Rashad Bateman, a huge 55-yard score to put the game away.
Those were 3 big touchdown passes right there that turned the game. So I'm happy for those guys. I'm proud of those guys. It's something that, I think that they were visualizing and happening in the first game, and for them to kind of break through in the first game and make those plays. It's a confidence, shot in the arm. So we just got to keep building on it.
To the college game, after tossing nearly 400 yards and accounting for 5 touchdowns in Maryland's 56-21 win at Charlotte, Terps quarterback Talia Tagovailoa was named the Big Ten Co-Offensive Player of the Week, and he only played into the middle of the third. Coming up at 11:30, more on the Ravens' Week 1 win over the Jets. The unit John Harbaugh is calling MVP of the game when Sports Unlimited continues.
Morgan, thank you. Who knew what and when did they know it? The investigation of hearing into the city's response to last week's E. coli contamination. Also, Baltimore's holding its first community meeting on Squeegee kids and their future on city streets. How you can weigh in. Three members of the Anne Arundel County Department of Public Works are in Mississippi helping with the water crisis there. Now, they'll be there for about 2 weeks helping to repair infrastructure at a water treatment plant. A boil water advisory has been in place in Jackson, Mississippi since historic flooding happened last month. Demanding answers and accountability after an E. coli contamination in Baltimore. How the city council is looking for accountability from the Department of Public Works. How can an 11-year-old face arson charges, but a 9-year-old accused of shooting and killing another person walk free? It depends on where you live. We're investigating the laws in the books right now regarding young people and crime. And buckle up and slow down. A new speed camera is coming along I-95. Where and when it activates coming up.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. The late edition begins right now with the exclusive Fox Track, your Baltimore Minute.
7 council members are calling for a hearing about those positive tests for E. coli over Labor Day weekend and Baltimore City's response.
There were a number of concerning issues that popped up over the past week, especially the fact that there was a positive test for E. coli on Saturday afternoon. The public was not informed until Monday morning.
A Mervo High School student shot and killed in the parking lot of his school. A 15-year-old Carver Vocational School student grazed in the head by a bullet near campus. And just last week, this loaded gun recovered from Connections Community School.
We got to worry about the safety of our teachers. We got to worry about the safety of our administration in these schools and the students, everybody.
Mayor Brandon Scott working with a group to find solutions after saying the current laws on the books banning squeegeeing would not be enforced. The Downtown Partnership of Baltimore piloting an armed security guard program, putting them at known squeegee corners to boost the feeling of safety. That program has ended. The Baltimore Police Department also utilizing hundreds of hours of allotted overtime to put officers here, not enforcing the laws, but watching.
DPW is a mess, and the head of this agency makes $245,000, one of the highest paid employees in the city.
Well, tonight there are calls for accountability from Baltimore's Department of Public Works, a multi-million-dollar agency funded by taxpayers and tasked with essential services in the city. If you walk around parts of Baltimore, the DPW has done work, and some of it has been questioned. Well, some Baltimore streets are littered with trash, and there are garbage bins that are overflowing. Because of short staffing, DPW is no longer picking up recycling each week, instead moving to a biweekly basis. This summer, the state took control of the Back River wastewater treatment plant, and they say the plant was in disrepair and posed catastrophic failures. And after last week's E. coli contamination, city council members are leading the way to hold DPW accountable.
You had babies' formula being mixed with E. coli water. You had seniors who were taking their medicine with E. coli water.
The Fox 45 News has team coverage right now of a city in crisis. We begin with Keith Daniels regarding Thursday's upcoming hearing and why Mayor Brandon Scott seems to be satisfied with the department's response.
Well, as you know, Councilman Yitzi Slifer has said he has, quote, little to no confidence in the Department of Public Works and how it handles its most basic functions. And tonight, the agency is under fire once again. At Baltimore City Hall,
Slifer, Middleton,
council members taking aim
and then went dark for approximately 9 hours.
Passing a resolution at Monday's city council meeting
and E. coli positive test,
clearing the way for investigative hearings to address last week's contaminated water crisis.
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, a lot of people were really scared. For this to happen is highly, highly unusual. So we have to get to the bottom of it.
Councilwoman Odette Ramos among those council members looking for answers and accountability. The Department of Public Works under scrutiny after E. coli was found in the water in West Baltimore, and why the public wasn't notified sooner over the holiday weekend.
Everyone was kept in the dark. The big danger is that, come Monday, you had babies' formula being mixed with E. coli water. You had seniors who were taking their medicine with E. coli water.
I do believe that things could have been done better. I know we got information later in the game, right, in terms of a late Sunday night into Monday morning.
A lot of frustration all around. I think a lot of it was the Department of Public Works as well as the mayor's office in terms of that unclear and inconsistent communication at the beginning of the contamination event. I will say as time went on, things did improve.
But despite council members' concerns over the matter, Mayor Brandon Scott insists the city's response to the crisis was handled correctly, refusing to be critical of DPW.
There was no misbundling of communication. You weren't here the other day, but we laid that out, that we follow the protocol of how you communicate and how you have to, MD has to say to DPW, yes, you can say this at this time. That was followed. We're going to follow every rule and every regulation. And when you're talking about an issue like this, again, this wasn't something that DPW mismanaged. They found out the water had this in it because they did the testing. This wasn't someone else telling us.
Still, council members calling for the hearing to get answers from city agencies, including DPW.
One, again, how the information was communicated, when folks knew what they knew, but also what can we do to mitigate these challenges in the future?
Did they drop the ball?
I will say this, everything could have been done better.
Well, the investigative hearing on the water crisis is set for 2 p.m. Thursday, and Councilman Schleifer has said he will have a hearing with DPW every Thursday until all questions are answered. We're at City Hall tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Are city leaders honest about the problems facing Baltimore? So far, 97% of those who voted say no. We want to know what you think. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to make your voice heard. Meantime, city residents will get a chance to weigh in on how the city addresses Squeegee kids. It follows a deadly encounter between Squeegee kids and a man who was shot. Now, the meeting will happen tomorrow evening at New Shiloh Baptist Church. That's in West Baltimore. It starts at 6 and runs through 8 o'clock. You have to register to attend. We have a link on our website, foxbaltimore.com. There have been renewed calls to do something about Squeegee kids after a Baltimore resident, Timothy Reynolds, was shot and killed in July in downtown Baltimore. City police say he exited his car after an incident wielding a bat with a group of Squeegee kids. Police say one of those Squeegee kids shot and killed Reynolds. Now, police have charged a 15-year-old for that murder. There are laws on the books right now against squeegeeing, but Mayor Brandon Scott and Marilyn Mosby, the city state's attorney, have not enforced them so far. The mayor is allowing Baltimore police to use overtime to sit at some Squeegee intersections. He's also assembled a group of community leaders, residents, and Squeegee kids and businesses to come up with recommendations by this fall. This community meeting is the next phase of that effort. Fox 45 News will be at that meeting. You can watch our coverage online at foxbaltimore.com and have a complete recap on the news at 10 o'clock. An 11-year-old boy is being charged with first-degree arson in connection with a fire that destroyed a Carroll County store. Now, that charge is raising questions tonight about how Maryland deals with children charged with crimes. Jeff Abel has the story.
There are complaints tonight that Baltimore and other jurisdictions are paying the price for taking a softer, gentler approach toward kids and crime.
In Hempstead, the fire that torched the Dollar General store left $2.5 million in damage. And the suspect is this child, an 11-year-old seen walking into the store on the day of the fire. State fire marshals have charged him as a juvenile with first-degree arson.
We know that it is not typical for an 11-year-old kid to burn down a Family Dollar. So that is indicative that there are some mental health issues there.
It's the latest case involving some of the state's youngest residents, now accused of some of the most violent crimes. In Baltimore last month, a 9-year-old allegedly shot and killed a 15-year-old girl. Police described it as an accident. The victim's family disagrees. But no matter the motive, in Maryland, 9-year-olds cannot be criminally charged.
Clearly, the focus in the leadership of the city and really in the leadership of the state in the General Assembly has been sort of some of the softer approaches that are consistent with, again, juvenile delinquency, not with, hardcore violent crimes.
It is time for Maryland's juvenile justice system to focus more on care
not cages.
In Annapolis this year, lawmakers passed new laws making it easier for more child suspects to be tried as juveniles instead of adults.
We are arresting and rearresting the same children and adults who are committing crimes in our community.
But in Prince George's County, county leaders who have seen crime soar this summer are calling for a curfew and a tougher approach.
It's clear that the problem is what happens after the arrest, or in our case, what doesn't happen.
You cannot treat every child at home.
What's happening, according to activist Kenji Scott, is that Maryland simply cannot provide the treatment for child suspects, who many lawmakers would rather not send to jail.
The state legislature has failed horribly at providing opportunities to care for our kids, and now they want to send them back into communities where they are unsafe.
That 11-year-old arson suspect is being charged as a juvenile and is back home tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
2 people have been arrested following a Baltimore County police shooting on Saturday. It happened in Rosedale, and one of them is still in the hospital. Alicia Page and Kelly Anthony are both charged with assaulting officers, claiming the car they were in hit a police vehicle. An off-duty officer was hurt, but there's no update on that officer's condition. Fox 45 News has asked for more information, including whether any of the officers are on leave or if there is body camera footage. So far, the department has refused to answer any of our questions. Well, drivers, we have a heads up for you. There's a new speed camera coming to I-95. We'll tell you where it will be installed. Queen Elizabeth II has begun her journey home. The scenes from Scotland today as thousands showed up to pay their respects.
And starting our Tuesday with some clouds here in Reisterstown, but the sun comes back, humidity lowers, and it's a gorgeous day to finish. I'm going to let you know how long this is going to last and when our next weather maker could ruin plans. My Weather Authority forecast.
Queen Elizabeth's final journey is underway. Thousands of people lining the streets of Scotland today as the Queen's casket made its way to St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh.
I think that it's important that we honour her as is due to our Queen. I think it's important that we reflect her life adequately.
King Charles and his siblings walked behind the hearse carrying their mother. The Queen will be buried next week. She'll be laid to rest next to her husband, Philip, at Windsor Castle. He died last year. President Biden and the First Lady will be in attendance.
Crime victims in Maryland had no rights, no right to information, no right to be present at a trial.
Well, she turned her personal tragedy into a fight for victims. Next, how one woman is being honored for 4 decades of advocacy in Maryland. Well, the Ravens opened with a win but suffered 2 key losses ahead. John Harbaugh weighs in on the impact of the injury on both sides. Change often happens by those who have suffered a terrible tragedy. And tonight, we share the story of one such change maker. Her name is Roberta Roper. Brad Bell with our Sinclair sister station in Washington, D.C. explains she's been fighting for the rights of crime victims for 40 years.
This is a lady who was a victim service provider in Charles County.
In the conference room of the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center, Roberta Roper is surrounded by the portraits of hundreds of murder victims.
Each of their names should be said and remembered.
It's personal. Her daughter's portrait also hangs on the wall. In 1982, Stephanie Roper was abducted in Prince George's County. She was brutally murdered. 2 men were charged and eventually convicted. But it was during that process Roper learned crime victims faced a secondary nightmare in the courthouse.
Crime victims in Maryland had no rights, no right to information, no right to be present at a trial. My husband and I concluded that if we didn't do something, how could we give our children hope when we had none?
Fueled by that resolve, she and the organization she founded have changed laws to give victims more rights. The Victims' Rights Center, now statewide, handling about 1,000 cases per year, guiding those who feel lost.
She saved us.
Paula Morris's son Evan was killed in 2011.
What Roberta did for us was to let us know what to expect.
Erica Proctor's son Delante was murdered in 2012.
And I know grief has no time limit,
But Miss Roper she's been really good.
Roberta Roper will soon be honored for her 40 years of advocacy and assistance. Those she's helped want her name spoken and remembered too. As for Mrs. Roper, she's beginning to work fewer hours, but her passion has not cooled.
We said we have to do whatever is in our power to change how the criminal justice system treats crime victims. And that's been a 40-year journey.
In Upper Marlboro, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
We'll check right now. The weather maker bringing rain into our region. Fox 45's Chevy Storm Tracker was out earlier capturing downpours during the evening commute. And on the right side of your screen, that's flooding near Cockeysville in Baltimore County. But after the storms, take a look at that. A beautiful rainbow. And if you look closely, you can see both arches of the double rainbow. This was sent to us from Hunt Valley. If you do capture images or video like this, you can do it safely, the rainbow obviously safely, we'd like to see it. Go to foxbaltimore.com and tap chime in to upload. You might just get a shout out on TV. And Jonathan tells us rainbows actually are always double rainbows.
Yeah, you know, it actually has to do with the angles of refraction. So when you're talking about rainbows, you actually always have that double arc. It just depends on the angle you're looking at and also the cloud cover. If it's thick enough, they can see that second arc. So there's your science for the day. Anyway, we had some rain, and actually it was some rain earlier on this afternoon. Multiple reports of flooding over southern and central Baltimore County, just outside the Beltway. Now things a lot better, although there's still a few showers that you can see here. All the way down to, let's go ahead, we could zoom in, all the way down into northwestern portions of Harford County, Jarrettsville, right up to the state line and down south toward Perry Hall as well. Now, as we take a little wider scope of this, you get a better picture of the entire weather maker here. There's some showers and storms clustered off the East Coast, some up in Pennsylvania and some down towards Charlottesville. And it looks like overall, as we put things in motion and take a look at the national radar, that's kind of the main games in town. Once you get west of that, there's a few showers that are up here toward western Ohio, central Ohio. I think a couple of those will make it through here tomorrow morning. That's as a cold front finally makes a push, and that should sweep all this out of here. For now, though, well, still dealing with some of the runoff, up to 1 to 3 inches of rain estimated on our radar, and the yellows and oranges. It's even a 4.5-inch amount with some of those oranges in eastern Baltimore County. So that's why we had some of the flooding. But now we're just stuck in that soupy, humid air. And again, there could be a stray shower overnight, especially toward tomorrow morning as this weather maker, a cold front, finally makes the big push, and we'll be drying out behind it as this transitional day that we'd like to kind of forget finally moves out of here, and we stay with several days of more kind of autumnal drier. But it's not necessarily going to be that much cooler. Actually, temperatures near 80 to 85, so somewhat warm air. 73 degrees on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam right now. We have the clouds, winds into the west-northwest at about 6 miles an hour. Still the soupy air with the dew points in the 70s. Temperatures generally in the 70s area-wide, except Gaithersburg at 69. There's the area you want. 50s, low to mid-60s across the Appalachians. Wind switch westerly tomorrow. That comes in here. Now, down into the tropics, a slim chance of development, or at least a slow chance, will stay over the central Atlantic as well as over the eastern Atlantic. So 2 spots that we'll be watching there, but we've got several days to watch them. Now, in terms of rain, it looks like through about 1 a.m. we could have some of those spot showers here and there. And after that, it's just a sprinkle to start tomorrow. And outside of that, the sunshine comes back, and we have a beautiful day for picking up the kids from school. A little bit damp in the morning, much finer in the afternoon, and it stays fine all the way through the weekend into early next week. Next chance of rain with the next weather maker all the way on next Tuesday.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Buckle up and slow down. That's the warning right now from police in Harford County. A new speed camera will be installed along I-95. After the break, we'll tell you where and when. Looking ahead right now, the Maryland Transportation Authority will install a speed camera along I-95 in Harford County next week. Now, that camera will be positioned in the construction zone on the southbound side near Route 152. The agency says there will be a 3-week warning period before it starts issuing $40 fines. The speed limit in that area is 65 miles an hour. A homecoming cut way too short in week 1. The diagnosis for Ravens cornerback Kyle Fuller's knee injury against the Jets ahead on Sports Unlimited. Well, we're counting down to the Ravens, of course, home opener, and the excitement is all around. Check out this cute picture Anita sent us. This is baby Mackenzie. Just look at that smile. Mackenzie is certainly excited to see the Ravens play at M&T Bank Stadium this weekend. Hey, Fox 45 News wants to see your purple pride ahead of the game. Send us your pictures to foxbaltimore.com/chime in, and you might see them on TV and on our website. Well, that's all for us on the late edition. Thank you for watching. I'm Kai Jackson. Here's Morgan Adson with Sports Unlimited. Morgan.
Thank you, Kai. Week 1 brought us plenty of poor performances, big upsets in the odds department, and bad kickers, but none of that affected the Ravens and their 24-9 win at the Jets. However, it did come with 2 losses due to injury, 2 starters from Sunday because of these 2021 injuries that are still an issue. In the second quarter, left tackle Juwan James, starting for the still injured Ronnie Stanley, pushed back by pressure and tore his Achilles again. He was carted off the field. Then in the fourth, Kyle Fuller went down with a knee injury. An MRI today, he is also done with a torn ACL. The Baltimore native's homecoming cut way too short.
He fit in so well and was playing good ball in the game and really all camps. Such a serious guy, so determined. He'll come back stronger than ever. One of those things, just a crazy circumstance on an AstroTurf. Got pushed off and just landed the wrong way in the turf, and the turf doesn't usually give as much as grass, so that's what happened.
With those injuries and still no left tackle Ronnie Stanley or corner Marcus Peters, the Ravens are next man up mentality, which unfortunately dating back to last season they have some practice with. At tackle, Patrick McCary came in for James, but a solution may come externally. At corner, the Ravens have rookie depth and second-year defensive back Brandon Stevens ready for a bigger workload after the loss of Fuller. Here's more from Harbaugh. First up on the left tackle situation.
Yeah, I think that's something that's in conversation right now. We'll just kind of see where we're at with all the moving parts there. There's a lot of moving parts that go with that, where we're at with our team, what's out there, those kind of things. So we'll continue to talk about those things. He's very smart, he's very conscientious. So he always learns, and He's never, you know, sensitive. Is that the word? Defensive. You know, he just wants a sponge. He just wants more information all the time. So he's done a good job with it.
On Monday's critique side, John Harbaugh said week one was a good starting off point, but there's plenty to work on. Offensively, they need to start fast, run the ball better, be quicker for the play calls. Defensively, besides some penalties, this is a unit that got after quarterback Joe Flacco, 3 sacks, 11 QB hits, a lot of pressure coming from solid D-line play, led by Michael Pierce in his return to the Ravens.
So just the way he played yesterday was the way he's been practicing all through training camp. And, you know, Michael's a pro. He's a good guy. He really matters to him. I think he's very motivated and determined to have a great year. And he had a great start yesterday. I mean, he was dominant. You know, the whole D-line was dominant, but he was right there, man, leading the charge.
Justin Madubuike, also mentioned by name, the defensive lineman, had a half-sack, QB hit, and tackle for loss. John Harbaugh said today Madubuike is determined to make a name for himself in year 3 and for people to actually learn how to say his name.
He was explosive all over the field. Pass rush was explosive, setting the tone. You know, he's another guy that I think is very determined to make a name for himself. You know, he wants people to remember him. I think he wants people to know how to pronounce his name, you know. And you got to make plays for that to be the case.
It's a good feeling, but it's about what do you do next? You know, what are you going to do next? You're going to slack off and not do as good the next game, or you're going to be more motivated and be a collective unit and keep stacking good games as a defense. And that's what we want to do.
And they're going to need him Sunday against the Dolphins. That's all for Sports Unlimited tonight. I'm Morgan Adsit. Thanks for watching. Good night.